YouTube Ozic going the Go Nows is back. We've been ranking all the position groups for the upcoming season, so it's time for the linebackers. And this is one of those positions that I seem to disagree pretty strongly with the consensus or Pro Football Focus, ESPN's ranking. So this should be an interesting one. Let's break it down. Top 32 linebackers for the upcoming 2025 season, in my opinion. Number 32, the Las Vegas Raiders' new linebacker, Jermaine Pratt. He did struggle a bit for the Bengals last year, but he's had some good seasons in the past. Raiders do a really good job coaching on defense under Patrick Graham, especially with the linebacker position. They're always elevating no-name or smaller-name linebackers. Look what they did at Robert Spillane. So I think Pratt could kind of step back up this year with that defense. And then Devin Lloyd of the Jags still has upside. He runs a little hot and cold, a little inconsistent. 1 second, people are like, is he a bust? Can they replace him? And 1 second, it's like, all right, he's figuring it out. Thought he stepped up a little bit last year. Jordan Brooks of the Dolphins at 30. Pretty reliable tackler, was getting in the backfield more and more as the season went on last year. As the season went on, the Dolphins' defense, defensive front in general, got better. Especially stopping the run. I thought Brooks was part of that. Ernest Jones feels like he finally found a home. Well, obviously, he finally found a home with Seattle. He got traded multiple times last year, so he's not for everyone. He's not the most valuable linebacker, but was very solid for the Seahawks under Mike McDonald. He can continue to feed off that. Bobby Okereke of the Giants 2 years ago was lights out, better than expected. Last year struggled a bit, and it was a little bit of a defensive change last year under Shane Bowen, so it makes people question, is he right for this defense? But he's got talent in him, flashy playmaker, maybe can get back on track. Caden Ellis of the Falcons, a little on the underrated side, really good weapon at the linebacker position, can blitz a lot from different alignments. Foy Aluokun of the Jags, maybe dropped down a little bit in the linebacker rankings. Tackling machine, but they took him off the field a little bit, sometimes, or not, at times on passing downs. He's very reliable in terms of run defense, but doesn't have a whole lot else to his game. But if you're talking about just run defense, like, he is very, very solid. Zaire Franklin, kind of in the same boat, was a tackling machine last year. Yeah, really in the same boat. They kept him on the field, though, on passing downs, but he definitely could improve his game in terms of pass defense at the linebacker position, but is the Colts' best linebacker in general. So, I think he led the NFL in tackles, so that means something. It's not the most important thing at the position in the world, but it definitely means something. 24, the Patriots' new linebacker, Robert Spillane, broke out a couple years ago for the Raiders, and he's been all over the field, a playmaker, tackling machine. Seems to be a right fit for Mike Vrabel and his defense, his team, so he could continue to feed off that. It's one of those guys, like, was it that Raiders defensive scheme? He's got really good players around him in that Patriots defense, so I don't see why not. Why can't he continue to play at a very high level? Tremaine Edmonds, flashy player, honestly been very underwhelming. You always expected more from him, very inconsistent. But, under Dennis Allen, we're kind of waiting for him to take another step up. It could happen in this defense, but he's been a little underwhelming. I always expected more from him. Terrell Bernard of the Buffalo Bills was, another breakout type linebacker last year. You could argue broke out before last year, but took another step up, earned a new contract. I was a little surprised about that contract, but they are paying for what he can become. A very flashy linebacker, decent in coverage, needs to be a little more consistent, and stay healthy. Azeez Al-Shaair, the Texans do have a number of linebackers competing for starting jobs. They have a number of guys, but I feel he is their best linebacker. He did get suspended for a little bit, last year, but when he was on the field, I felt like he was their best linebacker. We know he fits DeMeco Ryans' defense, but there's some competition there. I think we're going to see a big rotation, but I feel like he is their best linebacker. Alex Anzalone, we saw him injured a little bit last year, but so important to the Lions. They're so much better with him on the field. Maybe he's not as good as he was a year or two ago, not too far off. A blitzing factor. Just a guy that, there's times where this guy is everywhere. What's the solution for him? Patrick Queen at 19 wasn't nearly as good last year with the Steelers as he was with the Ravens the year before, so he does drop down a bit in the rankings, but I think he can play a little bit better this year. He's still an important piece to that Steelers defense, especially helping stopping the run. They were a little bit better, I thought, last year at doing that, so maybe he kind of gets back on track because he started a little slow for Baltimore, then really got going at the end there. Logan Wilson at 18 for the Bengals. Yeah, felt like he was playing better the year the Bengals made the Super Bowl, but we know he has that talent in him. Al Golden's a defense coordinator. Seems to get a lot out of linebackers. They did draft a couple linebackers, but Logan Wilson, I think, as long as he's out there healthy, his game could be elevated. Bobby Wagner coming in at 17. And, I'm not as high as him as Pro Football Focus. Obviously, they're super high on him. I just didn't see that last year. I'm not saying I saw bad play. He's still very good. It's very, very impressive the level he's playing at his age, how long he's been in the league. He's a future Hall of Famer for sure, one of the better linebackers I've ever seen play the game, and he's still playing very well. It's just, I think there are some that are a little high on him. He's been bouncing around teams a little bit. Does get driven, around a little bit by blockers, a little bit more than he used to. I'm kind of nitpicking at this point, but that's why you'll see him at 17. I think, again, there's some that are ranking him well inside the top 10. I'm just not quite there. My linebacker rankings are going to look a bit different, maybe than the consensus rankings. The top 16 NFL linebackers, another longtime vet, Demario Davis, one of the better linebackers we've seen over the last several years, still playing at an impressive level for his age. Was he 36? Not quite as good as he was a few years ago. Not super far off. Still a major factor for the Saints. We'll see how he is with a defensive change for New Orleans, which is, it's been Dennis Allen's defense for so long, really. So it'll be interesting to see. Edgerrin Cooper coming in at 15, so I'm expecting a big jump, but we kind of saw a big jump down the stretch of the season last year for the Green Bay Packers rookie. Him coming out of A&M, he was really good, but he kind of felt like a raw prospect because at that time it felt like he was a weapon. Like, rush the quarterback at the off-ball linebacker position. You can even put him off the edge. He did some of that, but he also did a lot more. He's actually very underrated in coverage, so he's a big-time factor for that Green Bay Packers defense. He's got a freaky amount of upside. He could even be better than number 15, a freaky amount of upside. We just want to see more, because he wasn't out there every game last year. Matt Milano at 14. We're going to start getting to the guys here, 2 in a row that are really, really tricky to rank. But Matt Milano got injured at this time last year, then missed most of the season, came back in. He played 98% of the snaps their last game in the playoffs. So he's still important. If he is fully healthy, he is really, really, really good. I trust that even now, since he's had injuries the last couple of years, obviously. So we haven't seen him a ton recently, but I still trust that. It's just, how healthy will he be? Will he be that top-tier Matt Milano if healthy? But he went into last year injured. When he got thrown back in at the end, it's tougher to do. So if he goes into this year healthy, he could end up being better than 14. Dre Greenlaw, last time we saw him play fully, in a season, he was easily a top 5 linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. But then he got injured in that Super Bowl. Didn't play last year. Then when he came back, he came back too early. He was limping around. He just wasn't right. It affected his play. It just didn't look right. And the Niners were trying to put Devondre Campbell back in for him, and he was like, no, you bench me. I'm going to sit out. So he had that whole debacle. So Greenlaw most likely just wasn't ready and definitely could be ready now. What player are we getting? Are we getting the one that was next to Fred Warner? I mean, the job isn't going to be as easy, so it could be a tougher job. Is he the same? Is he going to be healthy? So he is extremely tough to rank, but he was a top 5 linebacker when he was fully healthy and out there. So a little tricky. Deion Henley, maybe one of the underrated players in the league, really broke out last year. He was a guy coming out of college. We saw the coverage skills because he was a safety turn linebacker, and he really took off last year. He was not really supposed to be the best linebacker on the Chargers with the guys that they had. Remember, they drafted Colson last year as well. But Henley was their best guy out there. He's still got a lot of upside, but really, really impressed me in that Chargers defense that on paper they didn't really look as good as they were, especially in the middle there. I thought he was a big reason that they were better stopping the run. They could be better at it, but they were better than expected. Bottom line is what I'm getting at. He's got so much upside. He's going to continue to step up and step up and step up. Levante David, what he's doing at his age, 35, is unreal. Yet another stellar season. Maybe not as good as he was a few years ago. If he was, he'd be top 5, but still a major factor across the board. And maybe the most important piece, I say Vita Vea, Winfield, but one of the most important pieces on that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, Jamien Sherwood, really broke out last year, got that massive contract. A little tricky because with linebackers are affected the most, it seems. Look at the last several years by scheme change, coach change on defense at least, but the whole staff changed for the New York Jets, so could that affect a couple of these really good Jets linebackers? But the new staff liked what they saw from him. under Aaron Glenn, and they gave him a big contract. So I feel like Aaron Glenn's got a much better linebacker, even though it was solid, but a much better linebacker unit than he had with Detroit. And Aaron Glenn's all about, stopping the run, the front, 7. So I think he can get a lot out of the young rising star in Jamie and Sherwood. So I got him in the top 10. TJ Edwards of the Chicago Bears at 9. Tremaine Edmonds has always been the bigger name, the flashier name, got more upside, but plain and simple, TJ Edwards has just been better. I keep expecting Edmonds to be better, but he's just not. Maybe he can be under Dennis Allen, but that's a reason Dennis Allen's a reason I have TJ Edwards in the top 10. He probably wasn't a top 10 linebacker based off last year. I thought he was a little bit better 2 years ago, but something that did stand out about Edwards last year, the category he did elevate, he did get better was, as a blitzer. And I think that's, in my opinion, I think should be everyone's opinion, that should be big for a Dennis Allen defense. He loves blitzing his linebackers. This could be, his DeMario Davis, or would Tremaine Edmonds be that guy? But I thought Edwards added a little bit to his game last year, and he can continue to feed off that under Dennis Allen this year with him as his defensive coordinator in the first year. So I have him in the top 10. Top 8 linebackers, maybe the toughest guy to rank in this entire video, and it's DeMarvion Overshown, young linebacker of the Cowboys. I was super high on him out of Texas, probably higher than anyone on the planet. Just loved his game, a safety turn linebacker, and he got injured right away, and then last year he was unreal for the Dallas Cowboys, then gets injured again. So these rankings are for this upcoming season. He is currently injured, going to miss maybe a large portion even for this upcoming season. So how do you rank him high? That's the tricky part. But if he's expected to play, he's further along in his rehab than expected, and if he's out there for the Cowboys, down the stretch, if they make the playoffs, I mean, this is going to look like one of the best linebackers in football, because that's what he was last year. This is a today's style linebacker, a big-time playmaker in the pass game, the run game. The guy is all over the field. You can blitz him. I'd consider him in the top 3. Very, very, very. I'd put him in the top 3 if he was healthy. I think that highly of Overshown. So you got to drop him because he's starting the year off injured, but when he gets out there, it's one of the better linebackers in football. So it's very tough to rank. Blake Cashman, one of the more underrated players in all of football. He broke out a couple years ago for the Texans, and the Vikings signed him to a bigger contract, and I was like, oh, they're really banking on him breaking out more. I was kind of questioning it, and he played way better than I expected last year. He actually missed some games. That's really the only flaw I have on Cashman. He missed some games, and the Vikings defense, who was considered a pretty good defense under Brian Flores, they weren't very good when Blake Cashman was out, at least in my opinion. When he was in there, it was a much, much better defense. You can argue one of the more important players in that defense, but that's the thing with Cashman. I'm trying to pick out the best part of his game, because is he better in coverage? Is he better versus the run? Is he better blitzing? It's hard to pick one because he's so good across the board. I think the instincts in coverage, really impressive, but need to be a blitzer for Brian Flores. You need to be an effective blitzer, and he was that last year. So very important, versatile across the board. One of the better, more consistent linebackers in football right now that seems to be growing and growing. And Frankie Lavu, for the Washington Commanders, I've loved his game since the last couple of years with Carolina Panthers. Big factor as a blitzer all over the field. He's a little inconsistent, maybe the one-on-one tackles if we had to nitpick, but such a flashy impact player. I know some think Wagner's better than Frankie Lavu, but I think he's better, so I have him at number 6. Very, very important key piece, such a great fit for Dan Quinn's defense. Nick Bolton comes in at number 5, another just perfect, important impact piece, great fit in Spagnuolo's defense. He's just such a major factor. He's growing in coverage, but such a consistent run defender. He's a big-time factor as a blitzer. The Chiefs' defense needs him out there. It's a very, very, very important impact player for them. Quincy Williams, I guess I'm learning that he's underrated. I didn't really think so until I started seeing some of these other linebacker rankings that recently came out. So I think should be a little bit higher. Obviously, I have him at 4 than where people have him. Yes, it's tricky because all the time we see great linebackers all of a sudden fall off the face of the earth when the defensive coach or the defensive scheme, same thing really, changes. So let's hope that's not the case for the Jets, but this guy just feels like today's style linebacker. He's flashy. He's so rangy, sideline to sideline, was in the backfield constantly, a tackle for loss machine, which is super important, obviously. Just a big-time impact player. And these young linebackers of the Jets can continue to grow under Aaron Glenn in this defense. So I do like the Jets linebacker unit, but it's always a little tricky. Like I said, it's a little scary with the linebackers when you change schemes. Like guys just fall off the face of it, or sometimes they just all of a sudden they're really good. And so it's really that position's more so about defensive coaching and scheme. And the Jets did have good defensive coaches before that. So that's the thing to kind of keep an eye on there. But their group there is a really good young duo that I'm excited about. Zach Bond was, we're got to base it off 1 year, but he's back with the Eagles under Vic Fangio, just such an important piece, something that the Eagles have not had, and it just gave them that extra boost to win the Super Bowl, but effective in all areas. You talk about pass defense, run defense, just such a major factor, a big-time playmaker, was all the way through the Super Bowl. A massive factor and impact in the Super Bowl even. So he's going to be number 3. Roquan Smith at number 2. The Ravens consistently are a legit defense. They consistently are an elite run-stopping defense. Number 1, stopping the run, and is a lot. I always preach it. It's a lot more important than people think. Have to be able to stop the run to win big, to be a really good defense, really good football team, and win big-time games. And Roquan Smith is the main reason for that up front. And just a big-time leader for the Baltimore Ravens defense that just is very, very consistent. Obviously, they started a little slow early last year, but I think it's far and away Fred Warner number 1. I think it's any debate. If you don't have him 1, I'm questioning you a little bit there. But, yeah, he's number 1, the biggest playmaker, one of a kind in all of football. I didn't hesitate with that. I don't think that's really much of a debate, but let's take a look at some fans' takes. X-Subs linebacker rankings. Aiden Weingartner's got Fred Warner at 1, Roquan Smith, Zach Bond, Patrick Queen pretty high. Based off his Ravens year 2 years ago, maybe. I thought he was a little inconsistent, took some bad angles last year, but still a very solid linebacker. Levante David still balling out, Nick Bolton. Yeah, if Matt Milano's healthy full year, he easily could be up there. Jack Campbell's a guy I actually didn't rank. He has a lot of upside. He was pretty flashy last year. I just thought, when Anzalone was out, they really missed him. And then to start the year, it was Anzalone and Derek Barnes. Barnes got injured, and then Campbell kind of came, and he still played as a rotation guy. So they extended Barnes. Anzalone's back, their most important linebacker. So it's a little tricky with Campbell. I felt like he's been a little inconsistent based on what I've watched. Terrell Bernard, if he does take that next step. Yeah, the linebacker, and then Jamie and Sherwood. Linebacker rankings are probably going to be different from person to person here, except for at the top. But Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, Nick Bolton, Zach Bond. This is from Riley, by the way. Zach Bond, Quincy Williams. Yeah, Matt Milano, if he's healthy. Demario Davis, Okereke. Yeah, 2 years ago, Okereke, just not last year. Logan Wilson can kind of get back on track under Al Golden, definitely a possibility. Tremaine Edmonds, flashy, has that upside. Can he hit it? And then I mentioned Bernard, Aluokun, and Levante David. So everyone's different with these. Roquan, 1 for Fennec. He's up there. I got to have Fred Warner at 1. Zach Bond, Nick Bolton, Quincy Williams, Patrick Queen, Trey Greenlaw. Yeah, if Greenlaw's healthy, does he get back on track? Very curious about that. Leo Chenal, that's an interesting one. He does have some hype. He's really good run defender, but he's really only playing on obvious rushing situations right now. In the playoffs, he was getting like 34, 5%. Top of my head is in the 30s % snaps. So that, it's hard to rank him. Blake Cashman, Ivan Pace. Ivan Pace is an impact, flashy player. He gets a lot of hype. He's so situational, even though he plays a lot of snaps. He starts, but he's a really good blitzer. He's a little inconsistent one-on-one with tackles because he's a little undersized. He needs to get better in terms of coverage. He makes some game-changing, flashy plays. So he was a tough one to leave out. It's just he's so situational, and he does have his flaws still. But he's an interesting one that just missed the cut. But he has Cashman at number 10. Yeah, I think Cashman could be one of the more I don't know why this keeps popping up as spam. Got to show love to my Jags. Devin Lloyd, Aluokun. Yeah, I'm curious about the new defensive staff, the new defensive staff here. Lloyd, I ranked really high pre-draft a few years ago. He has a lot of upside still, so I can just see it happening at any time. I want them to use him as a blitzer more, rush him, because he did that at a pretty high level for Utah. Roquan, Milano, Franklin, Bolton. So you have different names. This is not in order. It doesn't look like. Drake Greenlaw, Zach Bond, Anzalone is more important than people realize, and then Bobby Wagner. So yeah, linebacker was a interesting one because everyone's got different opinions, and it's one of those positions where coaching and scheme is greater than or more important than the linebacker or could make the linebacker position. But that's what makes Fred Warner so damn good. You put that guy in any, you can see it. I know we've only seen him play for the Niners, but they've had some defensive coordinator changes. But you put that guy, that style player, that type of player, the one-of-a-kind player in any defense like that, it's a star for you. So that's why I think he's far and away number one. And Roquan Smith, if you put him in any defense, any scheme, you're at the very worst, you're getting a high-level middle linebacker that stops the run at a very, very high level, and they can elevate the rest of your defense. So that's why he's up there as well. Bond, yeah, you could argue he's kind of one of those guys that needs that right scheme because it kind of took him finding that right defense, the best defense in football. But man, he was so good on every phase and elevated that defense. So he's got to be up there. He's got to be up there for sure. But there you have it. Linebacker rankings. I think no matter who ranks them, I think they could be a little debatable, a little controversial. So I'm curious to see your guys' comments for this one. But we got to do corners and safeties. I also want to rank coaches. We'll rank some more things as well. But we're getting right. The Hall of Fame game is next weekend. We're right. It's right around the corner. I'm getting really excited for our preseason and in-season content. If you could join us, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. It's gonna do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.